colore rosato.
Just look at us trusting Google Maps. This is where Google Maps has brought me. And it's even more extreme if you think that YouTube belongs to Google. I mean, I practically work for Google. Don't hold that against me. Where are we going, man? Whoa. Let's walk very fast past this place. Venice. I'm not joking, this is still Venice, by the way. We made it, despite the shenanigans of earlier. Doesn't this place look like Venice to you, man? Well, if it looks like Venice, it must be Venice, right? Well, it's not. This is Chioggia. This is the island situated on the southernmost point of the lagoon. You see, outside of this marina starts the Venetian lagoon. Now, the Venetian lagoon is separated from the Adriatic Sea by two very long islands. One of them is Lido, closer to Venice, and the other one is called Pellestrina, which is closer to here, where we are now. Somewhere over there is the mouth of the little entrance from the open sea to the lagoon. And it was in a very warm afternoon of the summer of 1379 that the Genovese fleet, defying all logic, invaded the lagoon. This is why I came in Chioggia, because it was in this place that one of the most incredible special operations of the Middle Ages happened. The Genovese fleet actually entered the lagoon, threatening to destroy Venice once and for all. Genova, back in those days, was the mortal enemy of Venice. And seeing how the Venetians had almost complete control of the spice trade, the Genovese were extremely jealous, man. So they gathered the Hungarians, the Signoria of Padova, and generally everybody who hated Venice back in those days, to attack. Now, the Venetians were not stupid. They could sense that this operation, special operation, was something very dangerous for their republic. So they sent representatives to give diplomacy a chance. But the Genovese were pesky. And they asked the Venetians for the one thing that they would never surrender: the 4 bronze horses of San Marco, the very same bronze horses that the Venetians had stolen from Constantinople. But that's another story. It ended in one of the most spectacular ways in the history of special operations. One evening, they gathered their fleet outside of the mouth of the port, and with the aid of nighttime, so that they could cover their traces, entered their ships in the port and sunk them. The problem for the Genovese was that those ships were packed with big stones, big boulders. This act alone changed everything, literally in a night. It closed the exit of the Genovese fleet, and it turned them from the ones calling the shots to the besieged. This incredible victory by the Venetians signaled the moment that Venice was actually alone in controlling the commerce all over the Mediterranean. Genova crumbled after this. To be fair, Genova did have some internal troubles. Also, back in the day, there were the Genoas and the Sampdorias of the city. So they did not present a unified front. But after this defeat, man, it was, no Genoa anymore. Now, you didn't think that we would leave this city without visiting the stadium, the pearl of the place. Strangely enough, the team of the city is not called Chioggia. It's called Union Clodiense, and they are currently playing in Serie D. Aldo e Dino Ballarin. Ciao. That's a lovely little place, isn't it? So look at that, Union Clodiense, Chioggia Sottomarina. Look at this, the 2 legends that gave their name, I guess, to the place. So this would be all from Chioggia. I will take the bus and go back to Mestre now, and we take it from there. See you in a bit. All right. So I decided to get off the bus a little bit earlier because I realized that One very important place of our pilgrimage is nearby, and it's an excellent opportunity for me to talk to you about one major personality in the history of the Venezia support. Because let's face it, we cannot sit here and be talking about Venezia without mentioning BAE. For those of you who are a little bit older, I don't know if you were paying attention back then. I was. Every Super Tifo that got in my hands had something to say, some sort of little article on BAE. So BAE was the leader of the Ultras of Venezia, the Ultras Unione, the biggest group of the times. Well, I had to put the camera down because there are a lot of working girls here. This place is called Marghera, and it's a working class area, I guess. BAE was a nickname. His real name was Francesco Romor, a captivating character. He managed to lead not only the Venezia Ultras, but also a social center here in this area, in Marghera, which is called Revolt. As a matter of fact, I noticed this place when I was on the bus going to Chioggia. All right, look at this. Also, Mestre remembers its dead from all the wars. It's amazing how we like to remember the dead instead of blocking wars, special operations. Anyway, so I got the backpack, I'm going to the room. See you later. Bye-bye for now. This is a residential area in the city of Mestre. Now in front of us, over there, is the stadium of the local team. Look at these colors, man. Orange and black, the traditional colors of Mestre. This color, orange, came to the shirt of Venezia back in the 80s when they united. Yet another team that trusts its fate into scaffolding. What's going on, man, in the last couple of days? Is this the Ultras terrace? It could be, you know. When Venezia fused with Mestre, they used to play here. However, when they ascended, they returned to the Stadium of Venice. And as you will soon see, the two fan bases don't really like each other. Anymore, at least. But I'm not getting any of this, man. I mean, come on now. Somebody should pour some cement to these stadiums, man. To feel safer, you know? Are we reliving Acireale vibes, man? Or Savoia? Wow. Let me show you the room, because in order to survive economically in Venice, Venice is an expensive place, I had to book a room for 5 nights in Mestre. Now Mestre, because of the vicinity with Venice, is also a bit on the high end of prices. Well, this room is not. This is an incredible 38 euro per night room. Pretty much the basics, right? Now, for someone like me, this here is the essential. I mean, this. If a room has a desk and a chair, yours truly is happy. Pretty decent bathroom. I am literally half an hour by tram from Piazza Roma of Venice. Now, the vlog would not be complete without a stay in Venice, so I decided to invest most of my nights here, and tomorrow we will move to Venice for one night. The other day I did go to the Venezia against Avellino game. That was a night game, so I decided not to film much of it, although I was truly impressed by the presence of Avellino fans. I mean, imagine this, it's a Tuesday night game and they almost filled the away sector. Impressive, let me tell you. The very fact that you combine this image with a stadium experience is extraordinary, actually. thing that is connected to this union with Mestre is the story of BAE. When I searched online, I mean, the information is very scarce, but there is this very nice interview of a guy who used to be a supporter of Mestre back in the day. So this guy, Franz, describes their meeting with BAE during the period of the merging between Venezia and Mestre. And it's very interesting because he actually says there that we kind of stood there looking at each other, you know, trying to understand how this can work, because up until that point the two fan bases were very hostile, and now they had to be, you know, together. So since we are operating from memory, BAE's project was to build a sports facility in the Chiapas region of Mexico. Remember, this is the mid-90s, end of the 90s, when we had an explosion of social movements, most of them heavily inspired by the Zapatistas, by the concept of the Mexican Indian who is fighting the state, who is trying to destroy their ecosystem. So there is this emblematic figure of the Zapatistas, Subcomandante Marcos, who is always wearing a balaclava. And the reason he is doing this is because, in his own words, they can never be sure if they kill somebody with a balaclava that they got the right guy. That is ingenious, if you ask me. So young people in Europe are kind of mesmerized by this personality. BAE and his friends are such people. Now, unfortunately, BAE died before seeing his vision completed. The ones who stayed behind, however, made sure that this would definitely happen. So the Venezia Ultras, together with organizations like Yabasta, made their personal goal to achieve this dream of Francesco Romor. They started promoting the initiative to build something for Chiapas. They started selling material, and most of these initiatives had a huge success. They actually gathered something like 85,000 euros, and then the most incredible thing happened. The participation of ultras from around 40 different and rival ultra groups. This is the legacy, actually. This is the legacy of BAE, the guy who managed to unite ultras from groups that, when they meet each other, they actually fight. Unite them in a project that was for something good. Go in the middle of the jungle and restore the foundations of a small village is something important. The building of a greenhouse, the building of structures for the local community of the Chiapas is an important step on a symbolic level, but it's such a strong symbol, man. Now, don't think that BAE was a hippie. He had a certain mentality regarding violent episodes between ultras. And if you remember the episode in Cagliari, that we saw this graffiti against knives, that was also the mentality of BAE. He hated knives, and he also hated the type of ambush, many against few, promoting the idea that if anything happens, we fight and we leave no one behind. I want to finish the whole pilgrimage on the memory of BAE with another important building that is mentioned in that interview of his friend Franz. This is the Santa Maria Maggiore prison, and unfortunately is one of those buildings that BAE did frequent. The combination of ultra and at the same time part of the Rivolta, it was difficult to stomach for some parts of the society. Now, the Stadium of Venice is the second oldest in Italian football, besides our favorite, the Luigi Ferraris. That's the oldest. This is the Curva. This is where we were the other day to see the game against Avellino. This is probably for Modena, right? Rosario Central. Dresden up there. Romania, Rapid. A lot of people put their stickers here. Sing for the band fans. So, for some reason that I do not completely understand, the fans of Venezia still use the term union, united. But for them, I think it represents the union with Mestre. They call their team Venetian Mestre and not just Venezia. I'm not entirely sure why this is happening. Look at this, man. This should not be part of a stadium, man. I mean, what is this? Come on now. Right, and over there it's closed. You are the goodbye that I will never manage to tell. How about that for a stadium round one? Next to the canal. I think only Olbia can somewhat level the experience. It's interesting that I didn't really film a lot in the Avellino game, but I did sing. I mean, it's funny sometimes. I miss the singing part, man, you know? When I do these videos, I film, you know? And I do not, I rarely sing, even at AEK, you know? It's so weird. Look at it. Stadio Penso. Stadio Penso, by the way, I don't remember which decade this happened. I think was it in the 70s or 80s? There was this tornado hitting the lagoon, and it kind of destroyed the thing, and it took many, many years to recover. This would be the stand of the visitors. Not all of it. Half of the stand is given to Venezia supporters. This part and that part is for the visitors. Look at this. Ospiti merde. Funny. So we are extremely close to the epicenter of the Venetian Republic, the most serene, the Serenissima. However, trust me when I tell you there was nothing serene about this place. They were in constant warfare, believe it or not, and commerce. The term Serenissima refers to the stability of the system, and on that we have a lot to talk about. Do you remember when we were in Cesena, we talked about the condottieri? Now, Milan at some point was expanding and wanted to cut Venice from the food supply. The food supply, besides fish, was a land supply. So the Venetians, in order to be able to restore their well-being, they needed to fight the Milanese. And the Milanese were no other than the Viscontis. We have talked about the Viscontis in Brescia and probably Bergamo, but I'm not sure about that. Now, as we said back in Cesena, the condottieri were not to be trusted. I mean, they would change sides literally during the same day, depending on who would pay more. And there is this famous story, man, of a condottiero general who the Venetians were very suspicious of, Francesco Busone. His nickname was Carmagnola, which to my Greek fellow citizens will probably cause a smile. They invited him to come here to discuss future plans. They put him on trial, decided he was guilty of treason, and cut his head. So this corridor leading to the prison passes through the bridge of Sighs. Imagine this Carmagnola guy being stuck in one of these cells. Yeah, man, the prison of the most serene republic. Probably because of buildings like this, it remained serene. No, let's not. So Carmagnola's head is over there. Look at our guy, man. Look at Carmagnola, the lost head. Remember, he lost it over there, between those two pillars. The flipping Venetians decided that he wanted to betray them, and now he's keeping company to the seagulls. Now let's get in here and find out more. This is the palace of the Doges. The first citizens of Venice were actually refugees from the wars of Attila the Hun. Now Attila the Hun had the brilliant idea to sack the biggest port of the area that was in the nearby city of Aquila. And as we all know, you haven't properly conquered the place until you sack the port. So the refugees from Aquila came to this here place. Now, make no mistake, there was no Venice back then. The entire lagoon was nothing more than a swamp, and it was exactly for this reason that the refugees chose the place. It was not accessible for the horse riders of Attila. It was a matter of safety. Now, building in a swamp is not an easy business, and a very long story cut short is like this. They managed to deforestate entire areas here from Veneto and modern-day Slovenia, Croatia, all these places. And they used the trunks of the trees to build their foundations. Now, if you're wondering how come this entire city, how come all this can be standing on wood underwater, well, it's kind of easy and ingenious. At the same time, the wood being in the water, it means that it cannot rot because of the lack of oxygen. The Dutch used the same model. So after you make the swamp your home, what you need to do is find a way to make it work. And the Venetians found this ingenious system of the Doge. The Doge was essentially a creation of the system. He was elected by the elites and controlled by the council. This is the hall of the Great Council, the center of decisions, the oligarchy of the times. It was a council made by the heads of the families with most power that would control every possible aspect of what the Doge was doing. They didn't want him to have absolute power. The Doge would not pass their position to their kids. There was no hereditary stuff going on in the Serenissima. So the Council of the Ten that was converging in this place was actually the KGB of the times, right? All those hideous intelligence agencies of the times. This is the one place that you would not want to be back in those days. And it's extremely interesting the way they operated. They had these statues of lions on the walls of the city, and you could anonymously place your note in there, tipping them on who to judge for treason, for potential treason. Look at these three chaps. This is Adam, this is Eve, and that's Mars, the god of war. So essentially, sin, procreate, and then fight. Now, as a new up-and-coming republic, if you want to have some sort of prestige, you need the divine, you know? And here comes San Marco. The Venetians needed something to bring them in terms with the Pope. So the pesky Venetians sent a couple of very cunning merchants to Alexandria, to Egypt, to literally bribe everyone in order for them to let them take the body of Mark the Evangelist. Now, there was the slight problem of transporting it back to Venice. They placed the body in a box packed with pork meat, which to the average Muslim is a disgrace, is blasphemy. So the custom guards in Alexandria, the moment they saw the pork meat inside those boxes, they were extremely quick to let them pass, you know? So look at this man. After the Venetians stole the dead body of Mark, they brought it there. In order for you and me to go and see that golden thing, there is a series of tickets that need to be paid. I paid a ticket to come here, and I paid a ticket to see the horses. But I haven't a ticket to see to see San Marco. And I'm not going to, because if we are honest about it, it's another form of theft. Okay, let's go see the horses. I can affirm, however, that the flipping mosaics are sensational. I mean, look at this. If you ever wondered what Abraham looked like, so the horses were taken as the booty of war from the sacking of Constantinopole back in the Fourth Crusade. So in order for the Venetians to become the superpower that they ended up becoming, They needed a little help from Constantinopole. Remember, this is still the Byzantine time. So in the beginning of the first millennia, the emperor of Constantinople, Alexios Komnenos, I don't know why I said this with an English accent, man. Alexios Komnenos in Greek. He hired the Venetian fleet to fight the Seljuk Turks. Komnenos, in order to thank the Venetians, he issued a decree that they could essentially trade inside the Byzantine Empire tax-free, and that included Constantinople, man. That was quite a decree, if you ask me. So that decree made the economy of Venice explode. Look at this. Inquisition, torture, and witchcraft. The flipping Serenissima had their own representatives in the Inquisition who, despite the fact that they did not have a voting right, they were there to make sure that the multicultural Serenissima, remember we have merchants from every place, would stay functional. They did not want the Inquisition to mess with the commerce by sending foreigners to get burned between the columns between St. George and the Lion. Now, the reason why the Venetians could sell the services of their fleet in such a high price is the place we're going next. So this here is the entrance to the arsenal. As you can see, it's a military zone, also today, but back then it was essentially the place where the fleet of the Venetians would be constructed. If you look at it from above, it's quite a big area, which was divided into various guilds, and each guild would produce a massive quantity of every little part of a boat. And that made them extremely powerful, not only because they could restore damages from damaged ships, but also they were very fast and efficient in building them. As for this, man, I mean, what do we all think of this lion, man? This is the famous lion that the pesky Venetians stole from Pireaus. This is our lion. It was that Prat Morosini, man. Besides bombing the Parthenon, he stole that flipping lion from Pireaus. This lion gave the nickname to the port of Pireaus, Porto Leone, you know? And let me show you another thing. Can you see that? Those are carvings made by the Varangian Guard, the Viking mercenaries that used to work for the Byzantine Empire and protect and fight for Constantinople. Vikings carving our lions, our former lions. Okay, man, this is unbelievable. Look at my island. First of all, it's upside down, right? The reason it's upside down is Marco Polo. So Marco Polo reaches Kublai Khan's palace in China.
I love China.
He's forced to stay there for 24 years.
China, 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 China.
So upon coming back, he was at some point captured by the Genovese. And while in prison, he narrated the stories of his adventures to a guy called Rustichello da Pisa. This guy wrote the biography of Marco Polo, and based on information from that book, we have a map. Now, the problem with the map is that it's centered to the south, so it's essentially a map upside down. And here's my island, upside down. I was born here. This is Candia, what you know as Iraklio. So what's interesting with Marco Polo is that in the 24 years that he was essentially forced to stay in China, he discovered some very interesting innovations by the Chinese. For example, they were burning coal in order to get warm, you know, for heat, or paper money.
How can you not love China?
So you realize how important Venice is for me, coming from Crete, right? Look at the shadow of the Campanile, man. By the way, do you remember in one of the previous episodes when we were in Sardinia and we mentioned how bad the Catalans were in Athens, right, in the Acropolis? Now, the Catalan infantry, the Almogavers, looted they stole, they destroyed, but they never, how should I put it? They never bombed anything. If you want a good analogy of what the Almogavers did to Athens, try to think of ISIS. The same way we viewed ISIS some years ago. You know, the torturing, the killing, the destruction of statues and ancient sites in Syria. That was more or less how the Almogavers acted in Athens. What the Almogavers never did, though, is bring down the Parthenon. A flipping Venetian lord did that. So the Venetians were besieging the Acropolis, fighting the Ottomans, and Francesco Morosini ordered his soldiers to throw a cannonball onto the Parthenon. The Ottomans used the Parthenon as storage for ammunition. So the moment that cannonball landed in there, it went boom, you know. The same Francesco Morosini that used to be the lord of my home city, man, of Candia, of Heraklion. I'm conflicted about this, you know. And if you ever come to Venice, you will find a lot of information about him and his family here in this museum, in the Correr. Try to view this more or less as the history museum of the city. So look at this, man. This is Lo Stato di Mare. Our island, Famagusta. Do you remember when we were in Famagusta, what happened to the Venetians who tried to resist the Ottomans? Bad things. What is wild with all the war activities of the Serenissima is the way they treated the people who used to row, the sailors. Most of them were generally poor people, and the Venetians would pay them an initial sum right before the start of their special operations, as we call them today. Now, usually this sum would go to the families. However, there was a catch. You see, when the fleet would return, not from the war, from the special operations of the time, the rowers usually would not receive the rest of the money because the pesky Venetians would make them pay for everything that they would eat or drink on the ship. How cruel is that, man? So here's the thing, right? This is the famous biscotto that the sailors of Venice would eat. The people who would do all the hard rowing would eat. Let's give it a try. It has dry fruit in it. It's quite good. I mean, it's buttery, it's flavory, it's everything you need. Whether you can survive a month and a half on a trip to Crete, to my island, on this, that's doubtful. I think these flipping biscotti are the reason for all the scurvy of back in the day. What's interesting is that it's not sweet. I mean, it's more salty and buttery than sweet. This boat was used to celebrate the union of Venice with Italy. And by far the most important one of these ceremonial boats is this one, the Bucintoro. So the Bucintoro was used to celebrate the wedding with the sea of the Venetians. When the entire fleet would gather in Venice, the Doge would throw his ring into the open sea to symbolize this wedding. How are we with these two chaps? Now the problem was France. You see, when Napoleon came to Venice with the proposal, either you surrender or we completely destroy you, the Venetians were very scared and they decided to surrender. And the Napoleonic army tore the Bucintoro apart and took the gold. Now, besides the fact that the Venetians would try to save money from all the people who would do the rowing, I think the event that sealed their fate as a superpower of the time was the sack of Constantinopole. This happened during the Fourth Crusade. The Pope knocks on the door of the Doge of Venice, a 96-year-old blind man called Enrico Dandolo. Now, Dandolo was blind, but trust me on this, he had a very good ear for profitable offers. So Venice agreed to transport the Christian soldiers to the Holy Land for the astronomical sum for the times of 85,000 marks. However, the Christian soldiers that appeared were not even half. So you see where I'm going with this, right? They could not pay the debt. They paid something like half of it. The genius Enrico Dandolo came with a proposition. He said to the soldiers, look, you still owe us half of the money, pay it with services. And he pointed to them on the map the city of Zara, modern day Zadar. You see, Zara, back in the day, was a big competitor of Venice. The problem is that Zara was a Christian city. So you realize the shitstorm, right? The Pope intervened and said, look, I will excommunicate every one of you who even dares to fight a fellow Christian city. Dandolo, however, would not hear anything about it. I mean, he would insist, do this for us and we take you to the crusade, to the special operation. So yeah, they sacked Zara. Venice had one less opponent, and if that wasn't enough, the Crusader army moved towards Jerusalem when a second opportunity knocked on the door. A Byzantine prince called Alexios Angelos contacted Dandolo and asked him to help restore his deposed father to the throne of the Byzantine Empire. He actually promised the Venetian Doge to pay the rest of the debt of the Crusaders. They changed their route towards Constantinopole. They lay siege to the city, restoring Alexios' father, Isaac, on the throne of the Byzantine Empire. However, when Alexios checked the royal federal reserves, he realized that the empire was broke. So he couldn't repay the Crusaders. And that led to the most horrible moment in the history of Constantinople. I mean, the Ottoman capturing of the city has its foundation to the destruction that happened 3 centuries earlier during the sack. The Crusaders entered the city and destroyed literally everything. They stole, looted, and burned. Now, all that being said, there are several details that need to be mentioned. Some years earlier, the Byzantines themselves had performed massacres against the Latin population of Constantinople. I still remember reading how the Pope urged the Crusaders back then to not give anything back to the Greeks, because the Greeks were worse than the Jews, so we should not give them anything. Crazy stuff, if you ask me. Hey everybody, good morning. It is 6:30 in the morning. The main reason I woke up so early is because I want to go to Rialto, man. I want to go to Rialto without the crowds. I mean, just look at the state of this street. You can't imagine how horrible this street is during the day. Also today is game day. Venezia are playing against Reggiana. We see Reggiana once again, man. Look at us, man. Do you guys know why Rialto is important? It's not because of the selfies, although, yeah, that too. It's important because the commerce used to happen here in this area, under the bridge, on the bridge, around the bridge. The nutmeg quantities that were brought from Asia to here are the things of nightmares, if you think about it. And why nightmares? Because the amount of war, of special operations of the times, and the blood spill that happened to bring this bloody nutmeg here is beyond comprehension. And why was the nutmeg and the rest of the spices important? Well, simply because we had no fridge back then, man. There was no flipping fridge for the you and me's of the times to preserve our food. And look at us here, we are alone, sort of. But still in a much better situation than during the day, isn't it? Remember the Silk Road? The Venetians were bringing all those spices from the depths of Asia into Europe. They had established various commercial points all over the Mediterranean. I mean, for fuck's sake, my island was one of them. And they would bring them here in Venice, not only to be sold in the city, but also to the rest of Europe. Some centuries later, the Dutch, together with the Brits, would bloodshed the world for the exact same reason. The spices. By the way, these boats, gondolas, you see them how they tilt, right? I have discovered that this tilt is done on purpose because it balances with the weight of the gondoliere. Right, we cannot go further. Okay, let's go have breakfast. I remember there was this coffee shop, I think it's that one. They had this photograph of a small Lancia Delta driving down these steps. Look at this. So I think this is Sarajevo, right? Steaua, we know them. Venezia, of course. Look at this. Panathinaikos, isn't it? So I have been seeing quite a lot of stickers of Panathinaikos these days. And I think it has to do with the fact that Venezia Ultras are friends with Rapid Vienna, which is a common friendship with Panathinaikos. This is a well, right? The Venetians could not do much with the water of the canals because it's seawater, but they had found this system to filter the rainwater. They would gather it in these wells, let it pass through a sand layer, and the sand would act as a filter. Most probably the Venetians had quite a healthy gut environment. Okay. Okay. Ja, amato. So yeah, we fell in the canal, man. I mean, don't tell me it never happened to you, right? Did Venice punish us because we talk about how they loved killing people to gather all this wealth here, man? So yeah, we have gondolas passing in front of our window. I'm a scuba diver, man. I'm not going to be intimidated by a flipping canal. We dive with sharks here. Well, it is still a little bit wet, but this is exactly the reason why I wore it, to get out in the sun, to dry it up. I mean, the rest dried up in literally 10 minutes. Right, let me explain to you what's the story with this red pleasure of the senses. First of all, cheers. So here's how the whole Spritz thing works. The Venetians use an aperitif called Select. Most of us are used to this particular drink with Aperol. Variation of the thing is with Campari, which is from Milan. Now, the guy who made it for me said that it's very popular to drink it with white wine and also every once in a while with Prosecco. None of this, though, is the point I was trying to make. The funniest part of all this Spritzes, the bubble part, you see, that was the invention of the flipping Habsburgs. The Austrians were trying to water down their drink, hence the soda part. Let's get up the bridge. So another absolutely fascinating detail of the whole Venezia Mestre, name it how you will, story is this. In 1987, one of the weirdest personalities of Italian football decided to merge Venezia with Mestre. His name was Maurizio Zamparini. Remember, this was the merger that led BAE and France to meet. So Zamparini merges the two clubs, everybody's happy. I mean, the fans are happy that they are stronger together. The team is definitely happy because it's a merger with the best players from both teams. And Venezia Mestre slowly but surely starts flipping her. This is the wrong way. Ascending the categories. 15 years later, he dumps Venezia Mestre to buy Palermo. And in the summer of that year, he literally transfers 12 of the players of Venezia to Palermo together with the head coach. How unbearable is a former owner like that? Do you know why this mask has this specific shape, man? Because you can actually have your drink under it. There is a difference between the various masks that are sold out there. There are two different kinds of masks. One is the mask that you would use for the carnival. In order to mingle, let's say that you are a high society signore and you want to meet a less high society signora, you both wear the mask and you can mingle. Or the other way around, right? High society signora with a low society hobo. This is one category of masks, and the other are the theater masks. The theater masks are there to enhance your facial characteristics. Flipping Herman, so we are 10 minutes away, almost there. I wonder if Reggiana Ultras will be there. Probably they will. I mean, I don't remember any divieto.
Del nostro allenatore con il numero più di 3 intergradi.
was highly entertaining, man. I think even the Reggiana fans, they were happy with the performance of their team, despite the defeat, I mean. Venezia was just better, you know. There was protest against the ban of the Padova fans for the derby. But the view, man, I mean, this is one of the worst stadiums I've been in terms of view. Very, very old school. It is to my understanding that Venezia want to build a new one, which is outside of the city. That would probably mean an instant loss of character. But besides that, I understand that the ultras want to talk about it, you know. It's not that they don't approve of a new stadium. It's more they want clarity from the club in regards to their role. So that's a restaurant, right? Imagine dining there, man, for fuck's sake. All right, people. Cheers. Bloody hell, man, so these are phenomenal. This is the Venetian version of tapas, I guess. Very good. Anyway, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. So what do you guys think? Did BAE succeed? Was his legacy enough to give something to our world that people would be proud of? I think he was. And that's why I think that we need people like BAE somehow to make us move a little bit faster towards something somewhat better than the shitstorm we are living at the moment. So with these thoughts in mind, it is time to say our goodbyes from La Serenissima, which was not very serene, but who cares? We should care. A lot of blood was spilled. So big up BAE, long live his memory, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.